sand, yeah.
How big a span you putting across?
Well, I found a narrow spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably about 15 feet, but it's a 40-foot trailer.
Oh, yeah, so you don't have to brace nothing underneath.
All right, gentlemen, y'all ready?
Yep.
All righty, we'd like to welcome you to our public hearing budget meeting. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to get a affirmation of our agenda.
Is he on there yet?
Yeah.
No. I just meant the on air sign was not on.
Yeah, but we on.
Okay.
We are on there, so.
We gotta have the sign.
How battery costs?
Bob's battery's not working.
On here.
There we go. I'll make a motion we affirm the agenda.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Andrew Mackey.
All right. Hello, everyone. Appreciate everyone here to listen to the public hearing of the budget. Yeah, had a much larger crowd last time we went through this. So as I mentioned when we talked about this last month, nothing has changed between now and then. The state has yet to meet to do their conference committee to go over their budget. I think they start that next week. So numbers in here have not changed at all. I'll briefly go through them again just for a refresher. Our local revenue, we've got budgeted for about $7.86 million. That includes all our property tax revenue, all our fee in lieu of tax money. Our county money is projected to go up by about 6%, which I actually went to the county's budget presentation last week just out of curiosity to see how they were handling stuff, and they're projecting an 8% increase on their property tax revenue. So tax revenues across the board are going up, which is good for government entities like ourselves. We've budgeted a $400,000 loss as the impact of some of the Fuji closure. The county anticipates it being a little bit less than that. Hopefully it's quite a bit less than that. But we've got the maximum loss budgeted, so hopefully we'll have some money to work with as the year progresses, and we'll know those final numbers in August. Our state revenue, we're projected to get about $6.7 million from the State Department of Education. The majority of that, almost $6 million, is the state aid to classrooms, which is the line items you hear about when they talk about the state budget for education. We've only budgeted $5.8 million of that, and that's because when they reallocated at the 45-day count, we've historically lost money every single time the last 2 years. The first year in fiscal year 23, when they recounted the student count, we lost $237,000 off our projection. And when they did it again at 135, we were down a total of $319,000. This year, it appears they've got those student counts a little more leveled off, a little more consistent. We only lost $152,000 at the 45-day count this year, and at 135, we only lost an additional $6,000 for a total of $158,000. Difference between what we're actually receiving and what they projected us to receive at the beginning of the year. And so I think I've budgeted, I think the exact number is $165,000 less than what we're projected to get. So, you know, a big driver of that's the charter school populations. Maybe we'll get, you know, kids back to public school and our numbers will go up a little bit. Some of our other revenue we get from, you know, state reimbursements, our tier 3 reimbursement. That's the penny sales tax that replaced owner-occupied school district property tax on 4% property. So that's $2.25 million. And then some of the other reimbursements we get about $500,000. Interest income, this is a big one. I've only budgeted for $50,000. To date this year, just in our one local government investment pool account, we've earned $165,000 in interest because rates are so high. It's a really good investment savings market for us. We'll probably have a little bit less cash on hand after we finish paying for the renovation at the old high school, but I've got in there that they anticipate one rate cut. I just saw today that they don't anticipate any rate cuts anymore. So interest rates will stay high, which is good for saving money. So that 50,000 could very easily be much higher than that. So there's some more money we may get throughout the year. And then our out of district is about $40,000. That's pretty consistent year to year. Moving on to the expenditures. We've gone over the state minimum salary scale quite a bit. You know, they're raising the first step to 47,000. Heavy emphasis on those early steps to try to encourage more people to get into the profession, and not really addressing much of anything on the back end, the higher end of the scale, which is where the majority of our teachers are. So to address that inequity in what the state's doing with their scale, we're going to do a 3% increase to every step on every scale. And for those steps on the scale that are greater than 3%, we'll just pull them up to meet the minimum. And I can show you that here. So this is like the bachelor scale here. This first column on the left is where we are at currently. This is what the teacher minimum is now going to be. And here's the percent increase. So as you can see, these first few steps are getting pretty big percentage increases. But as you get further down the scale, we're already over the minimum, you know, starting at step 16. So that's where we sort of look to say, what percentage increase can we give to everybody to where everyone's getting a fairly significant, you know, salary increase, to sort of close the gap on some of this inequity. So 3% is sort of where we landed. So these early steps, you know, they'll just meet the minimum, and then down here, you know, we stay quite a bit above the minimum, starting from step 12. So that's our bachelor scale. Here's our bachelor plus 18 scale. We only got 4 steps above 3%. Our master's scale has 1 over 3%. Master's plus 30 are all over the minimum. And so we have 27 teachers on that master's plus 30 scale. So if we just said, we'll meet the minimum and do nothing else, we'll have a significant chunk of teachers not getting any kind of raise. So that's where we settled on the 3%. Most districts in the area are doing, I think 2% is actually what most of the districts are doing, but somewhere around that 2 to 3% range is what everyone's trying to accomplish. And so with a 3% increase to all steps on all scales, plus a step increase. So a step increase is between 1 and 2%, depending on your scale. So everyone's truly getting about a 4 or 5% increase. That'll bring our salary number to about 9.2 million, about 4.2 million in benefits for 13.4 total. Just some other things we've added to our budget this year. With ESSER ending in September, we've had 4 positions that we're retaining into our general fund, which was always the plan with these 4 positions, that we were going to get them back in the general fund whenever ESSER ran out. That totals about $365,000, salaries and benefits. And then we've got about $45,000 that we've earmarked for summer school. We'd like to keep that program going. The Enrich hosting, that's a special education software that houses all their data. State used to pay for it. They're not paying for it anymore. So we have to pay for this to have access to our records and our data. $10,000 for safety equipment, signs, traffic cones, money for an additional crisis prevention trainer. That's like if there's a fight between students, you can safely stop a fight without hurting yourself or anyone else. And then we've got our janitorial service, or utilities, insurance, all the things that increase year over year. We've got that built into the budget as well. So our projected revenue is $17.4 million, $17,408,635 to be exact. Our projected expenses are also $17,408,635. It's a balanced budget. And as I mentioned earlier, if our loss from Fuji is less than anticipated, we'll be able to go in and make a budget amendment or a budget adjustment to pick up, like let's say we needed some more IT help, we can make a budget adjustment to say, hey, $50,000 for additional IT support. Just another note, our expenses have been under budget every year since at least 2020. That's as far back as I cared to go. And our revenues have been over budget all but 1 year in that same time frame too, which just shows that we do a really good job of budgeting pretty conservatively on both revenue and expense side, which then puts us in a good place at the end of the year.
We still on that projection to be under budget for this year? At the end?
Yeah. Revenue's over budget already, and expenses are gonna come in under budget as too. So that's part of the monthly update though, Jay, for the next meeting. Here's our sort of the breakdown that I always provide for you guys. Breaks down the different revenue streams we have, the difference between the upcoming budget and the current budget, expenses. And then here's our total expenditures here that match our total revenue with a zero deficit, surplus, balanced budget. So that's it for the budget. I go through the fund balance again, which we talk about a lot. We have a 25% minimum we have to keep. We're well over that. There's a 30% maximum where we have to discuss. Consider using it on something. And I think a good practice that a lot of other districts do is any excess over whatever maximum or whatever, if they say we keep 25% fund balance, transfer the rest to capital projects, and that allows us to use that money for obviously any kind of building needs we have, replacing ViewSonic boards, laptops, really any sort of non-recurring transactions that you need to operate the school. You just go ahead and earmark that money every year for those types of projects. So that's it on the budget part, which you guys have all seen before. Also included in the budget for approval is the salary scales. Those are in your board packet. So here's all those breakdowns. So here's, we have a bunch of different salary scales for teachers, secretaries, teachers' assistants, maintenance staff, IT staff. They're all in there. What I do want to point out specifically though is, we had talked about several months ago about sort of tweaking our admin scales to get those to be more competitive. So just to go over what we talked about again, if you look up here, so here's our assistant superintendent scale. Here's where it would currently be. This includes the 3% increase that we've budgeted. So if we kept the scale the same, this is what it would be. It would start out at $70,000 as step 0, and then the top end is $119,000. The problem is that we're never going to start assistant superintendent at $70,000, because if you scroll back over here to a teacher scale, teachers, at step 23 with the master's plus 30 is making $72,000, working 190 days as opposed to 235 days. It's like some of those early steps, they're never going to get used. But then on the higher end, our salary study from several years ago pointed out that a lot of our admin positions were behind where other surrounding districts were. So to try to increase the amount we are able to pay for admin, the proposal was to take off these first 5 or 6 steps that we're never going to use, slide everything up or down, depending on how you look at it, and then add 6 more on top. And so our starting salary on the proposal would be $78,000. Top end is $134,000. So we're increasing the ceiling for everybody, the earnings potential. Now, like if you were supposed to be, let's say our assistant superintendent was supposed to be on step 22, he's not going to stay at step 22 on the new proposal. His step will go adjust. So if he's supposed to be at 22, making $106,000, he would go to step 16, making the same amount. But now he just has more earnings potential. was the theory behind it. I felt like I didn't do a great job explaining that the first time around several months ago. Hopefully it's a little clearer now. So are there any comments or questions on that?
I have one question. You mentioned we're making money with some interest.
Yeah.
What interest does that come from?
So we have some money. We get about 4% interest just from cash held at United Community Bank, which is just our local operating account. And then there's it's essentially like a bank account that state entities are allowed to invest in. It's the local government investment pool, which is essentially just like a giant state bank account. So then money we don't need for operations, like anything in excess that we don't need like immediately, we can put in LGIP, which earns a little bit higher interest rate. It's like at 5.2% right now. And then some of our long-term monies invested in school districts are allowed to invest in certain types of mutual funds. And so we have a Fidelity account that earns money as well. So we've got a couple different interests.
And the fund balance, that's money we don't have, it's just there, or is that invested?
Well, so we have so much cash because our fund balance is so good. Now, fund balance does not equal cash. Fund balance is more of just like an accounting number. But the way sort of government entities and school districts, the fund accounting, the way they're accounted for, a lot of times, if you have a good fund balance, you're going to have a bunch of cash, which is, they kind of go hand in hand.
You can't get fund balance and invest it.
Well, correct, yeah. Fund balance is just an accounting number, really. It just tracks how much revenue in excess of expenditures you've had over time. And so sometimes you can see, like in the private sector, you can be cash poor but have like a really good equity or fund balance because you have a bunch of assets. Whereas government accounting, you don't pick up your buildings in your general fund. So like our big assets, they don't show up anywhere on our general fund. So our only asset is cash. So that's why if you have a big general fund balance, you're going to have a bunch of cash. And so it's hard to sort of explain, but
Touched it a little bit, but I was just curious also, when did you start taking over management of our funds? How long have you been with the district?
so I've been the finance director. I think I started June 11th, 2021, I think. So this is almost exactly 3 years. But for about 5 or 6 years before that, I served as the auditor for the school district. So I've been managing it for 3 years, but I've got, 8 or 9 years of experience with the funding.
So you didn't go back 420, so I didn't know if that's...
No, I just didn't want to go back further in their accounting software to dig up more data. So I could have kept going, but
This is what I do,
yeah. No, I mean our previous director of finance, Sharon, she did an excellent job sort of building up this fund balance. And, her and Dr. Rex Ward, prior superintendent, put us in a really good spot. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, circling back to these salary schedules, once we approve the budget in the second reading, if you approve the budget, you'll also approve these salary schedules with this proposal on the admin scales. And then also included in there are the athletic and extracurricular supplements, which there's no difference between, there's 2 small differences on those this year. Why is this not opening? Our athletic department wanted to add a $4,000 supplement for field maintenance. That'll likely go to one person. Typically our ag teacher, Henderson Road, does all the stadium field maintenance, cutting grass, whatever he does. He does a lot.
He does baseball.
Yeah, baseball, softball. So it'll probably go to him. If he doesn't do the majority of it, they might split that up. But That's a lot of time and effort that goes into maintaining the fields. And so BJ Wirtz, our athletic director, wanted to compensate that time. And then we also added one football assistant supplement. Our football coaching staff wanted to add another assistant that we were able to incorporate into the budget. So other than that, they're exactly the same as they were last year. So that'll be also a part of the budget approval process in the regular scheduled meeting.
The 5 additional days, what is that? Is that,
We did that last year. We just bumped them up from 190 days to 195 days, just as a way to compensate them for some of that extra summer work they do. So yeah, I'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have. Otherwise, I'm finished.
Thank you.
If you think of some more, we'll talk about this again in a few minutes. So.
All right,
All right.
no other questions? All right, if there's no other question, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. From our, there's a motion, is there a second? Motion second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. We've got about 10 minutes before the regular meeting starts.